everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is Monday. I have no idea what day it is. I'll put it on the screen somewhere. But it's Monday, and I have been working a little bit today on Littlehood as I progress through to the first round of developmental edits. Now, I've already gone through the read-through. I have a vlog on that. But I had so much fun vlogging that, and honestly, just talking out these struggles as they came up in the read-through was so helpful that I figured I would just keep going. I would just keep vlogging, and I would keep taking you guys right along with me through this post-writing process of mine and the journey that is Littlehood. Last week, I finished the read-through in record time in just over a week. And I sat down the day after, or maybe it was 2 days after. I sat down some other day that week, and I wrote up a list of the big picture overall. These are the mega things that span the whole book that I need to fix. Today, last week some too, but today in particular, I realized a couple of things that needed to be fixed that are bigger picture, that may take more time than just sitting down and writing up some new scenes, which is what I'm also going to have to do. If you missed the whole Act 1 debacle, you can see it in the read-through vlog. Anywho, I was watching through Brandon Sanderson's, the 2020 classes that he did at BYU on his YouTube channel. You can find it. I'll link the specific video that I was watching in the description box below, but he has a whole playlist. And I hadn't watched this series before, so I pulled it up. And I was watching the one on Plot, and it was talking about the promise. Let me see if I can remember exactly. But anyways, basically what it boiled down to is the promise of your plot, the progress of that promise, and then the payoff at the very end. And kind of figuring out more about what your promise actually looks like based on what kind of story you're telling. And I realized that I wasn't entirely sure what the promise of this book was, since even at the very first version of this book that I attempted to publish 4 years ago, even then, I think that I didn't really have a solid promise of what the book was going to be, other than it was a fairy tale retelling. Now, Snowdust's promise of the premise is incredibly simple and super easy. Snow Queen shows up, Kay gets infected, Gerda goes and chases Kay down. It's a journey story. It's going to have magic, but it's from the perspective of this little girl who's being thrust into this new world, so we have no clue what's coming. It's an adventure story, straight up adventure, and it's really easy to see that coming with the promise within the first. In fact, I have the first 3 chapters up on my website, which is linked in the description box as well. You can go read the first 3 chapters, but the promise is right there, and the progress on that promise, it happens right away, and it continues to build throughout the story pretty naturally. With Littlehood, I think the reason that I was struggling so much during outlining and drafting, and then the things that kept coming up in the read-through, was that because I didn't have a solid handle on the promise exactly, and exactly what kind of story I was telling, then it was very difficult for me to provide that progress. So that even though there was, and I mean it was an epic climax, I think that the battle at the end was amazing, and the resolution scenes, like the very last chapter of the book was my favorite chapter of the entire book. That was awesome. But the whole rest of the book felt very shaky, and so it doesn't really make much of a difference how good my ending is if the readers hated the rest of the book, especially if it caused them to DNF it or do not finish. I think what I'm going to do this week is really focus on fleshing out those 3 aspects: the promise, the progress, and the payoff. That's what I'm going to work on this week, is really fleshing out the promise, the progress, and the payoff. And then once I know what kind of story that I'm telling and exactly what aspects of the story that I need to be honing in on in order to create that promise, then I can go back and fix Act 1 and the first half of Act 2. Anywho, I did the map today, so that's one thing off my checklist. But I have right here my notebook with plot reworking ideas. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to work on, I think, largely the promise tonight. Figure out what kind of story I want to be telling and what I want the reader to come to the book looking for. I'll take you guys with me and then let you kind of know at the end what I come up with my notes here. So wish me luck. Okay, so I just did about, I want to say 40 minutes of work, and all handwritten, so my hand is exhausted, but, wow, I'm so glad I decided to do this. Something that I am seeing a pattern, from the read-through and through this, and why I'm so glad that I did that zero draft last year, even though it was such a hard writing experience, is that I'm seeing that the zero draft plot as it was did not work. And the current draft plot that I have doesn't fully work. But if I take the best parts of both and weave them together, I think I finally have the final plot. So what I wrote here under my plot reworking ideas page was I wrote down my basic goal was, which is to establish the promise of the premise, of course. And then the two questions I asked myself were, what kind of story archetype am I writing? And then what is the reason that people are picking this book up? What is it that's being promised up front? That is inspiring them to read the story to begin with. And something about Little Hood being a Red Riding Hood retelling of sorts, even though it's technically like the Golden Hood, which is an alternate version by Hans Christian Andersen, so the ending is quite different. The same basic fairy tale plot is in play here. You have a little girl who is told by her mother never to talk to strangers, goes through the forest to her grandmother's, meets the wolf, and ends up at the grandmother's house where the wolf is there and ready to eat her. That's the basic fairy tale. That is the basic Red Riding Hood, Golden Riding Hood. It doesn't matter what version you're reading. That is the fairy tale. So the question I have been asking myself for the past week has been, what about my take on this fairy tale, besides the alternate ending from the Hans Christian Andersen version, makes it different, makes it worth picking up? And I think there's a lot in the book as it is that is fun. But I went ahead and I wrote a list of the promises that just by the kind of story that I have going, why people are already going to pick it up. I looked up a blog article that listed over Christopher Brooks' 7 basic plot archetypes. And I'm sure there's many other versions and stuff, but that's kind of just what I found. And the very first one, the very first plot archetype was called Overcoming the Monster. And the description was, a hero must destroy a monster or villain that is threatening the community. Usually the decisive fight occurs in the monster's lair, and usually the hero has some kind of magic weapon at their disposal. And I was like, okay, I don't need to look any further. That is this story. That is the original fairy tale, which is what I'm retelling, and that is what the heart of this book is. So all the other stuff, that the subplots that have come in, and the different characters, and the different aspects of story that have come in, as I have fleshed out this story, and as I have sought to really define it, apart from just the classic fairy tale, all of that kind of stole from the why I would pick up this book. And that is, it's a Riding Hood retelling about the monster that the hero faces off, and there's going to be magic involved. I mean, that's why we're doing this. We're there for, in this case, Blanche And the mother, the grandmother, the woodcutter, the wolf, we're there for it. The cabin in the woods, we're there for it. That's what we're here for. And so there were parts of the zero draft that really drew from this and focused on that aspect, that as I attempted to flesh it out more, and I think maybe in some ways was feeling pressure to make more original, was in this newer draft, was kind of pulling away from, that I want to bring back. So the list of the promises that I wrote down as being made to the reader, and none of these are spoilery. None of these are spoilery. So I'm just going to read them off. But the first is that this is a story about a strong-willed girl who loves her mother but hates their life and wants more than anything to run off and make a life of her own, a life of excitement and adventure. That is Blanche, her story, straight up. Like in the very first chapter, you know that that's what's happening with her. The second, and probably the most prominent of all of the promises, is that this story will have a wolf. And that our strong-willed girl is going to have to face off this wolf in the end. That is like one of the, that is the biggest promise that this book is making. Some other stuff that is included that I saw being introduced in Act 1 is that in this story, the strong-willed girl will face a lot of obstacles beyond just the wolf. And in order to defeat them, she's going to have to grow up some and have some help. So she's going to have to change. So there's going to be some character growth, and she's going to have to get some allies. She's going to have to assemble a team, if you will. That's not necessarily what she does, but like she's going to have to draw on the other characters, which means that some other fun people are going to be involved. And that was the next promise, was that there will be a mother, a grandmother, and a woodcutter. The three most, other than like the actual Riding Hood and the wolf, those are the three most iconic characters, the mother, the grandmother, and the wolf. And they're here. And we're there for it. I'm there for it as the writer. And then, of course, finally, that there are mysterious forces of magic at work. Ooh, I'm going to just rest this arm a little bit. That is clear even from the cover. The way that the cover is done, I can't wait to share that with you guys. I can't share it until fall. But even the way that the cover is designed promises that there's going to be something, some kind of magic. And the blurb, whenever it comes out, will hint that there's going to be some magic involved. And so there's the promise of some kind of mysterious force of magic that is going to be at work throughout the story. And so with those promises, looking them over and thinking through how to really hone in on those promises and use them to bring the story to life, rather than sticking them in to fill out the story, I wrote a whole other list. I'll almost give myself a paper cut with. But yeah, this paper is definitely too spoilery to read. But I basically came up with five basic aspects to the story, dealing with the wolf, dealing with Blanche, dealing with some of the other villainous characters, dealing with the and the other, the mother, grandmother, woodcutter idea. That I'm really excited. Now I did, two of these were I was supposed to only work on the promise part of it tonight and kind of figure out like how I wanted to introduce that. But I ended up actually giving myself like full book material in two of the answers that I gave. When I kind of honed in on the wolf and like what all I want going on with that. And then of course, a plot point that I can't reveal right now. A plot point that I can't reveal right now that I need to bring up earlier in the story, and then really let that be one of the key plot points throughout the whole book. I think at this point it is definitely going to be much more of an overhaul than even I had originally thought after the read-through. Like after the read-through, I knew the first half of the book needed some serious help. But now after having just sat down and done this, I've realized that the whole book is going to need an overhaul. It is not going to be anywhere near like what this last one was. I'm not starting over from scratch and completely redrafting. But I do really want to make sure I'm taking my time at this point of the process and figure out what does work, because I've already spent 2 drafts figuring out what doesn't work. So now it's time to figure out what does work. Anyway, I'm going to sign off for the night, and I will talk to you guys probably tomorrow, if that ends up being when I sit down and figure this out. So good night, and yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, and hopefully my arms will not be so tired tomorrow. All right, everyone, and we are back. It is now 8:40. I'm going to say, yep, 8:40. And I am sitting down to work on Littlehood finally after a very long day. I actually feel oddly energized. I've already started working on my snowflake method one sentence synopsis of Littlehood. And if you cannot tell, the first attempt was 29 words. And it's supposed to be a maximum of 15. You know, an overwriter problem. So I'm sitting down right now. I'm going to try to boil this down to the 15-word maximum. I have already exchanged 3 words for 1 word. Now I have to figure out another way of setting out to do something without saying setting off to do something. So let's see how it turns out. So the one-sentence synopsis is, a fearless girl befriends a wounded wolf and seeks out the monster who hurt him and is destroying her village. The fact that I got that this is a 20-word, so like this is still 5 words over what they recommend, but I have, what's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 words I could have cut, but it's words like a or the. And it's like, you know, I'm not going to split hairs over that. Yeah, I'm not the kind of personality that to whom that means that much. So, and again, I did come up with the 1 paragraph. I'm going to type that up on the computer rather than actually write it out again because my hand is starting to hurt a little bit. And then I'm going to write it down in the notebook and make this like my official page for pre-outlining stuff. And I think I'm going to step away from the snowflake method and I'm going to go ahead and start working on the introduction of the promises in the book, which will cover Act 1, and see if that can kind of help me as I work on really fleshing out Act 1 and kind of expanding on it and making it better. Alrighty, well, I think I'm going to call it a night. I didn't finish filling out the Act 1 promise layout, but I think I want some more time to think about it. I did write down, and I can't show you, but boop, boop. I did write down the 1 paragraph synopsis on my snowflake method sheet. Yeah, just give it a little bit more time. I don't want to rush through this. I want to really take the time to think through all the possible applications and what really needs to shine through. This 1 sentence and 1 paragraph synopsis definitely did that for me, especially the 1 sentence synopsis. Blanche befriending the wolf has always been a part of the story, that this wounded wolf that she finds, that she befriends, turns out it's a talking wolf. That's always been a part of the story, but I wasn't sure if it was something that I could talk about because I wasn't sure if it was a part of the actual, like, what's on the back of the book blurb type part of the story, or if it was like a background thing, and I kind of hid it. I wasn't sure, so I hid it. In all of my synopses before, like it was part of the book that I didn't talk about because I thought it was going to be spoilery. But now that I've decided that it is actually like part of the main plot, I feel a lot freer. I feel like, oh, okay. And it also brings back again the roots of this fairy tale and what drew me to it in the first place, which hopefully will draw readers to it as well. So I'm really grateful that I did this. But now it is time for me to retire for the night. It is 9:50. I was supposed to be done 20 minutes ago. We just won't talk about that, shall we? I'm going to put away my notes for the night, and I will see you guys tomorrow. I think tomorrow I'm going to spend the afternoon filming a video for Saturday, potentially. And then in the evening, I will get back on here, and we will figure out Act 1. It's going to be very exciting. All right, so yeah, good night to everyone for now, and I'll see you tomorrow. And we are here again. Welcome back to Wednesday. It is 8:45-ish. Um, and I am sitting down to do some more Littlehood work. I am not quite as well rested as I was last night, but we have a giant plot twist in tonight's adventure because remember how I said I was going to come back and start replotting Act 1? Ha! Fooled me too because I started listening. As I mentioned, I've been listening to Brandon Sanderson's creative writing lectures at BYU, and I was going to go back and listen to his one on plot that had been so inspiring before, since that's kind of what started this very rabbit hole type replotting week. And I ended up listening to his characters one instead. There was actually two, but I listened to the first one. I don't remember why I decided to do that, but I am so infinitely grateful that I did, because I did realize a couple of things about Blanche, the main character, where it's one of those things where you know how to do something and you still sometimes miss a few steps, or you don't get it right the first time. Sometimes it takes several times to get something right. So I was just inspired after listening to that lecture to go back to the characters before I start writing out that new Act 1 and let that be the launching point for my re-outlining. Because as I was listening, I realized that Blanche's character has come a long way. I've said it at the beginning of pretty much every writing vlog for this new draft that I wrote, if you've seen any of the writing vlogs that I did, but this was the draft where she, as a character, really started coming to life for me. And I spent a ton of time in December working on character profiles and personality tests and background and goal motivation and conflict and all that stuff, which I am so glad that I did because it gave me somewhere to start. But after having written a second draft that was from scratch, so having written two drafts from scratch for her character, I feel like I now understand so much more about her. And yes, she came to life, or at least started to come to life during that drafting process. But now, listening back through some of the steps to really developing and understanding your character, I feel like I need to go back, not from scratch this time, thank goodness, but just, go back to those building blocks, those fundamental building blocks of understanding her character, of understanding the mother, the woodcutter, the grandmother, all the characters, and using that as, again, my springboard into Act 1, because this plotting stuff was perfect. It was just what I needed to refigure out the story as a whole. But I have a feeling that these characters, the reworking the characters and really hammering out what's going on with them is what's going to allow me to easily go through Act 1 in the re-outlining process. So that is what I'm going to be doing tonight. It would be awesome if I could somehow do both that and re-outlining Act 1, but I am not even going to attempt to fool myself into thinking that if through some miracle I do manage to get back to that multi-act structure that I had going on there with the overcoming the monster archetype, then absolutely I will do that. But it's already almost 9 o'clock and I do not want to be in here later than 10. I don't even want to be here till 10. So yeah, we're just going to go for the characters and see where that lands us. I actually have his lecture pulled up. I'm going to be listening to that and making notes as I go. I'm going to pull up an empty Word document so that I have something to work with. And then, of course, I have my notebooks. I have the original character profiles here. And then, of course, all the work that I did, as well as the draft itself, and the notebook with the blank page, and my red pen. And the keyboard, because that is actually much faster. So we'll see which one I end up doing. And also, there will not be very much speed roll, just because I am so tired right now. So apologies. But you've had lots in the last couple clips. I'm sure there will be more tomorrow. Okay, so already I'm starting to understand why the character development from Blanche from this second draft did not, well, really from the first draft as well, but I'm beginning to understand why the second draft still didn't quite go as emotionally impactfully as I wanted to. And it's because I was sitting here looking at the character's inner journey. Sorry, I'll turn so you can see. But I have the character's inner journey written out with the contrast between what they want and what they genuinely need. So they start off wanting at the beginning of the story, thinking what will fix all their problems, and then shifting over, I don't know, about halfway through to beginning to understand what it is that they actually need. And I had written down that her deepest desire is to live a life of adventure and heroism, but that what she truly needs, even if she doesn't realize it yet, is to learn gratitude or contentment for what she has before looking for what she doesn't. And that could work with the story, but just sitting down and like I looked at this after I had written down what I'm thinking after having written this second draft in the Word document while listening to the lecture. And I realized that that's actually not at all what she really needs. And I didn't realize this, I don't think, until I wrote that last chapter. Remember I said that that last chapter of the book was just like hugely emotionally impactful for me. Like it felt so satisfying and so fulfilling. And I think it's because I finally figured out what it was that Blanche needed to learn all along. And I had it wrong from the get-go and didn't realize it. Like that's a decent desire and a decent versus a decent need. But what I love here, I think it's so much better here. So what I wrote down here instead is that what she wants is to be a hero and live a life of adventure, which I also wrote in beneath the surface is to get out, just to get out. And of course, why she wants is because her life is miserable and she hates it. But then what she really needs is to understand that being a hero means helping people, and that life of adventure will cost her if she's willing to actually fight for good instead of just for money or fame. And that's what it kind of started boiling down to after the midpoint, as I was writing and I was beginning to understand her and her true, like the want that she had. But I don't think it was until that last chapter that I really began to grasp, oh, this is it. This is what she needed to learn all along. It's kind of like that moment at the end of Wizard of Oz where Glinda shows up and says, "What have you learned, Dorothy?" And Dorothy just has like a light bulb moment. It's like, oh, now I feel like an idiot. Well, I don't know. She felt like an idiot. I don't necessarily feel like an idiot. I just wish that I had figured this out sooner because it would have saved me a lot of frustration. But again, I think that this is one of those books that for whatever reason, I just had to write multiple drafts before I finally figured this stuff out. So part of being a plantster maybe, or I don't know. I mean, Brandon Sanderson says that he is 100% a plotter, and he says that he has done this multiple times for many of his books. So, I mean, if he did it, it's got to be a legitimate thing, right? Okay, so moving forward from this, I actually feel like I'm in a good place. I have all of these different points that he gives for establishing characters that are like going to draw the reader in for all of the main characters, but I don't think that I need to do all of them tonight. It is currently just after 9:30, and I'm really itching to get to that Act 1 now. I feel like just this one thing that I learned has just like opened up new possibilities, and I got a whole bunch of ideas in the beginning section, like the very first section, which is, what is this one? Establishing empathy, to really help me figure out those first couple of chapters, which is what I think I struggled with the most, other than the whole midpoint thing. So I'm actually going to take like a miniature break. No, I'm not. I'm going to figure out her mother's and the woodcutters' motivations, goal, motivation, conflict, all that stuff. And then I'm going to switch over. I'm going to start working on the Act 1 redo, using a combination of my current outlining plot beats system and the new overcoming the monster plot archetype structure. Okay. And again, I probably will not be able to get any B-roll because I need to get this done. I am so out of breath, y'all. There's no more room for my lungs in my chest, it feels like. But yeah, I want to go ahead and just get this done and then tell you all about it afterwards. So I think that's what I'm probably going to do. All right, everyone. Real quick explanation. I did work some more Wednesday night, and I did work last night, but I was not able to capture it on video. Apologies for that. Just a variety of circumstances all got jumbled up together, and I ended up not being able to film. But I am currently sitting down. It is now 4:32 on Friday. I've been working for about a half an hour and I am just super excited because I am completely restructuring Act 1 as I mentioned, but I'm like really restructuring it. This may end up being another redrafting process. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. What I ended up with after last night was this, which I'm using Sarah Cannon's plot your novel worksheets for this, just to kind of see it visually or simply. So I'll link that video series in the description box below so that you can use it if you want. But I use this for all my books right now because it's a quick and easy way to just kind of look at the very basic plot beats of the story. But I came up with this, which as you can see, there's now like all these markings. I'm actually going to be trashing this because I decided I liked something better. So I'm ditching this. And I just finished redoing it. Which you can see there's still a lot of jumbling up, but I'm kind of figuring out a little bit more how I want to do the slow build, while at the same time digging deeper into the mystery element of like the magic and what's happening and the villains and stuff. And so what I'm going to do now, if I finish this in half an hour, and I'm really excited, I'm going to take this now, I'm going to pull out my colored Post-it notes and a giant piece of cardboard, and I'm going to start just filling out ideas for scenes that I could have. I also want to see at a glance, just looking at the cardboard and looking at the Post-it notes, how many times and in what order we're leaving the house, which is where Blanche pretty much spends most of her life, and so that I know how to work with that. So yeah, I'm going to do that. I don't know if I'll be able to get any footage of it, but I will definitely catch back up with you guys at the end and let you know how it goes. Well, it is not Friday anymore. It is Saturday. And I did not hop back on to let you know how it was going. I'm so sorry. This week has just been like, I've been doing really well with the work, but I have not been doing so great about the updating. Yeah, I'm not worried about it though, because I'm still making progress, like serious progress. So tonight, I actually have a night to myself. My husband had a job that he went to go work this weekend, so he's actually not here tonight. So I kind of had the night to do whatever I wanted, and of course, being a writer, I decided, I don't know if y'all can hear that. Can you hear that, the thunder? There's this really awesome storm going on outside with thunder and lightning, and there was some rain. I think it's all done now, but it's very inspiring. Anywho, where was I? Sorry, I got distracted. Anywho, this is my current setup. Got the baby resting right here. But this is what I've gone with for my my outline. And this is how I'm doing the scenes. As you can see at the very top of the poster board, there are 5 Post-it notes of different colors that signify the different locations. So this is Act 1. This is what Act 1 currently looks like. And I'm really excited. It's already, I think, several more scenes than the last one. Probably similar number of chapters, but I feel like there's actually more happening plot-wise. And then this is about how far I am in, I'm gonna switch hands. I've got to get a tripod. But that's about how far I've gotten in Act 2, the first half. So I will be ending this page with like the midpoint and the mirror moment, again going back to Sarah Cannon having those plot your novel worksheets. I had Netflix on for a while, but I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling anything like that. So I've actually had AuthorTube videos on in the background. I've been listening to other people's writing vlogs. The new setup with like the locations helped me to see like so many different things, but now I've got 6 scenes. So yeah, I will let you guys know, and I will this time, how it goes. It is currently 11 o'clock, so I will not be on much longer. But I'm for sure going to finish this up because I really want to see where it leads me. And then I think I'm just going to take a break till Monday and do something else tomorrow while waiting for Micah to come home. So yeah, let's do it. And I'm really tired. This is horrible. I'm so much happier with the material already just looking at it. I was so distraught when I first realized that I was going to have to flesh out Act 1 and the first half of Act 2, basically the whole first half of the book, because I wasn't sure what to put there without it just being like filler material, which I don't want to write in my books. I don't want scenes that are just there to be scenes. I want every single scene to serve a purpose, and these do. Some of them I'm going to definitely have to like flesh out in outline version, which I'm planning on doing anyways, but just I'm excited. And the fact that at the end of this week I made it through halfway through the book, because I only have 1 week left in the month of May. And I feel like if I could, I'm sure Monday's going to be a wash because it's Memorial Day, but then maybe like Tuesday and Wednesday, if I could wrap up the last 2 quarters of the book as far as like the papers go, then maybe like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, do the note cards version or the post-it notes version, and maybe go ahead and start typing up an actual like outline with like scenes that I feel like I already know, not worry about as much, or maybe just set up a document. Sorry, I'm going to change hands. I just completely lost my train of thought, so I'm going to start over. I think I'm going to go ahead and end the vlog here because I feel like there's not really, I don't know. I mean, this is like a Monday through Saturday vlog. I think that that's perfectly acceptable, and it'd be nice to have a smaller vlog. My last one was almost like an hour. So yeah, I'm going to end the video here. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to click the like and consider subscribing on the way out. I post writerly content every week. I post writerly content every week. I do how-to tutorial type videos, especially geared toward like fantasy writing and series writing, but toward all writing in general. And then of course these fun writer vlogs where I just take you guys along through the story as well. Lots of spoilery hints here on the story. I'm so excited. I love you all so much. I hope you have an amazing, amazing rest of the week writing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.